Good morning, everyone. Welcome to At Home with Hayley. Happy Friday. I can see you all coming through. If you could just let me know that you can hear me okay in the chat box, that'd be awesome. I'm actually out of breath because I just ran to get online. I didn't realize what time it was. I can see it's going to be one of those days. Luckily for me, I've actually given myself the day off today. So after this session with you guys this morning, I'm going to have a nice, chilled and relaxing day. Maybe do some Christmas shopping. So I can see the messages coming through saying you can hear me loud and clear. Good morning, everyone. So just in terms of our guest today, unfortunately, our guest has tonsillitis and she can't speak. So as much as she'd love to be here, she can't string a sentence together, and even if she can, you can't hear her anyway. So unfortunately, guys, you're just stuck with me today. But I have an in-depth update for you, and many of you sent questions through as well, so we'll address those. And if you do have any questions during the update, please just pop them into the chat box and we'll address them at the end. So I'm now going to jump straight on to our update and we'll take it from there. Just catch my breath back again. So the update, actually, I'm going to give credit to Landlord Zone, the Belvoir Group, and Inside Conveyancing. So I've been through some of their news feeds, been through some of their statistics, and had a look at some information that they've put out there and kind of put it all together for you guys this morning. So councils then, this was one of the top things that I thought I'd cover off with you, because many of us are looking at HMOs, many of you are looking to get into HMOs, many of you ask questions around licensing, etc. So I thought it would be a good idea just to cover this off. So councils to launch property licensing onslaught in the new year. So landlords beware, basically. If your property requires a license, then please make sure you have one. The PRS licensing scheme is set to increase by a staggering 39% next year as councils prepare to collect an estimated 400 million in selective additional licensing scheme fees and fines, and 1.9 million in recovered unpaid taxes by landlords. This has been published by a platform that compiles data on property licensing across the UK for landlords, lettings agencies and councils. This includes the existing 386 mandatory licence, 124 discretionary schemes already in operation, plus 48 set to start, and further schemes under the consideration. This, in my opinion, and probably many others as well, this is a local authority money-making scheme, in my opinion, and I personally think that it's a disgrace. Local councils are set to be keener on enforcements and fines, wider licensing schemes, because it's easier, or an easier way to plug the local authority funding gap that is set to widen next year to 3.2 billion. The councils have actually said, we see property licensing as a chance to improve standards at times when studies show that poorer quality housing correlates with the faster spread of coronavirus. I don't normally swear, guys, but I'll say it like it is, and I call bullshit, basically. I apologise if I offend anyone for my poor language, but I think that that's rubbish. Just say it like it is. If it's a way to be able to bridge that gap, raise money, then call it. You know, don't tart it up and pretend it has anything to do with the welfare of the tenants. It's just another way of pushing the private rented sector. Anyway, just something to be aware of. Always check if you are purchasing, if your property requires a license. And that goes for any property you are looking to rent out. So, you know, there's lots of different licensing. You've got selective licensing, mandatory licensing, additional licensing. So even if it's not HMO, you can have buy-to-lets that fall in a selective licensing area where you will need a selective license. So always check in with the local licensing department. Check in with the council, make sure you get a paper trail as well, and take it from there. So don't get caught out by that, guys and girls. So Belvoir, then, in addition to Q3 rental index, a cross-section network survey confirms that the house rents continue to outperform apartments. I think this has always been the case, to be honest, but this is new information that's been published. With offices sitting high demand after lockdown, plus a shortage of properties and contributing factors. Belvoir's survey revealed that 82.5% of participating offices reported increased rents for houses in Q3 versus 2019. Although many of these offices are predicting that rents will continue to rise in Q4 and beyond, this is dependent on regional factors. We have mentioned this many times before, and many times in the past as well. There's lots of little micro areas, and we do need to pay attention to what's going on in our area, because statistics may show very different and performance ratings may be very different as well. We also have to take into account the supply and demand, not just look at average rent. We need to look at occupancy levels, and we need to look at the number of people that are looking in that particular area and have a look at the competition of what stock is available for them. So surprisingly, during the pandemic, the average length of tenancies remains high, although this has been a trend for some time, with 41% of tenants opting to remain in their homes for 19 to 24 months, and almost a quarter renting for over 2 years. Q3 post-lockdown rental index reveals significant regional diversity, with evidence of increased tenant demand, property shortages and arrears in some areas. Average rental values have remained fairly flat for the past 3 years, but the UK's largest high street property management franchise, which has over 300 offices nationwide, is predicting that continued high tenant demand plus shortage of properties is likely to result in increased rents in 2021. Again, we kind of called that about 3 or 4 months ago. Belvoir continues to call for government intervention to protect tenants who are becoming increasingly vulnerable to rent arrears. There is undoubtedly an urgent need for the government's intervention and improved strategies to ensure that tenants are able to access and benefit from the same levels of assistance as homeowners have. Without further government support, such as the introduction of tenant loan schemes, which is already in operation in Wales, there will be increased risk of further rises in arrears and more likelihood of landlords actually looking just to sell up and get out. This will result in further shortage of good quality properties and will leave tenants vulnerable to rogue landlords offering substandard accommodation. Very strange times that we're living in, isn't it, really? But the positive, I suppose, guys and girls, is out of uncertainty comes great opportunities. And if anything else, it really does separate the men from the boys. So just while we're talking about rent arrears, let's have a little look at eviction obstacles. So the government has thrown many obstacles in the way of landlords attempting to evict tenants since COVID struck. But one of the most onerous is recently introduced review hearings. Many of you have probably heard about this, and I think Charles spoke about this recently as well in one of the latest episodes. It was an introduction, or it was introduced in September as part of the government's attempt to prioritise the most urgent cases. But they require such a huge effort to comply with leading eviction specialists. Landlord Action has now actually set up a dedicated team to help landlords complete the paperwork needed to get through that process the first time around. So if you are, if you are a landlord and you are struggling with eviction and you're not sure of the process, there's many eviction specialists out there. Landlord Action are one of the biggest that are out there. Of course, there was Charles as well that was on recently. They have these services where they can help you make sure that you've got all your case in order, so that you don't actually end up not complying with the paperwork that's needed to get through that process and starting back at square one. The whole purpose of the review hearing, which is carried out over the phone, is to determine whether the landlord's case should proceed to full hearing or not. So just be aware of that, guys and girls. Make sure that if you are taking care of the eviction yourself, you read in on all of the changes and the requirements, what paperwork you need in place. And I mean, in my opinion, just how difficult it is at this moment in time, it would be worth actually paying an eviction specialist to take care of your case. So moving on then, so the Green Homes Grant has highlighted clear teething problems at the scheme as it struggles to recruit enough approved tradespeople who are already busy. Tech glitches within the official website, and so far only 6,000 applications from landlords or vouchers for vouchers. It's had 47,000 applications for vouchers, with more issued daily, including landlords. At launch, it was announced that 600,000 vouchers were available. Therefore, there has only been, that's my dog. They always say, don't they, never work with children or animals. That's probably an Amazon delivery. So where were we? Sorry. 6,000 applications from landlords. It's had 47,000 applications for vouchers, with more issued daily, including landlords. At the launch, we spoke about this a few weeks ago as well, it has 600,000 vouchers available. So there's only so far been an 8% pickup. Landlord and homeowners have been told by double glazing fitters that the scheme is too complex and costly in the busy run up to Christmas, leaving them with a voucher and no workmen to carry out the works. Under the 2 billion scheme, they can claim up to 2/3 of the property green refurbishment cost, with a ceiling price of £5,000 per rented home. The voucher covers costs for labour, materials and VAT, and work must be completed by a Trustmark registered installer who is registered for the scheme. Once they've provided a quote and the work is approved, a voucher is issued. Tradespeople must register with Trustmark, and while there were 1,000 registered installers just before it launched, only 200 have registered since the launch. So very much the feedback, it's just too much paperwork, too much hassle, and that's the feedback that we're getting from the tradespeople. So just be aware of that. Again, definitely look into that if you are a landlord, because there are advantages there. And of course, it will reduce your costs to improve the energy performance of your property as well. So looking at the stamp duty holiday then, the stamp duty holiday is set for March 2020. There has been rumours that perhaps this may be extended. It is just rumours at this moment in time. The stamp duty holiday has allowed over 2.1 million home buyers to get on the property ladder. As buyers continue to rush to complete their purchases before the stamp duty holiday ends, over 100,000 additional house sales are expected during the first 3 months of 2021. However, property website Zoopla states that only half of the deals agreed in January are likely to complete before the stamp duty holiday deadline in March 2021. The high demand for mortgages alongside coronavirus restrictions has created delays in the process, meaning hundreds of thousands of home buyers who are racing to benefit from the holiday will unfortunately be left disappointed. Major retailers then, so moving on from there, major retailers closed up shop. So this was actually really quite shocking. So shocking announcement for the Arcadian Group, which is so sad because our Topshop is one of my favourite shops, and that's under that group. But anyway, the Arcadian Group collapses into administration. More than 13,000 jobs at risk in the biggest UK corporate failure of the COVID pandemic. Arcadian Group has collapsed into administration. The owner of the household names, including Topshop, Topman, Miss Selfridges, Dorothy Perkins, Evans's Burton, appointed administration or administrators on Monday. No immediate redundancies were made as a result of the appointment. The group's stores and websites will continue to trade. The move will protect Arcadian from creditors while a buyer is sought for all or part of the company. Arcadia's management will retain day-to-day control of the business under the light touch trading administration. The same process operating at the troubled department stores chain Debenhams. The impact of COVID-19, so this is a statement. So the impact of COVID-19 pandemic, including the forced closure of our stores for the prolonged periods, has severely impacted on trading across all brands. Throughout this immensely challenging time, our priority has been to protect jobs and preserve the financial stability of the group in the hope that we could ride out the pandemic and come out fighting on the other side. Ultimately, however, in the face of the most difficult trading conditions we have ever experienced, the obstacles we have countered have been far too great. It's a real shame. Hopefully they find a buyer to take these brands on and expand and flourish. Like I said, I absolutely love Topshop. It's a shame. And I think there's many more of these stories to come as well. So, moving on to Nick then. So Nick over at Lighthouse FX. So just going to read out a little bit of information from their report. With less than a month to go until the end of Brexit transition period, comments and rumours from the negotiating table continue to drive pound's valuation, leading to wild prices action, particularly against the dollar. Cable fell over 1% throughout yesterday's session, but has regained most of its losses into this morning. Ireland's foreign minister said that he believed there is a good chance of an agreement. He said that it's time to hold our nerve and trust Michael Barnier. I believe if we do that, there's a good chance that we can get a deal across the line in the next few days. This week has been marked as a make or break moment due to necessary time to seek approval on the deal by all parties involved. It is likely that the volatility will continue over the next few days, at least, so clients would be prudent to act with caution. Sainsbury's have confirmed its intentions to return around 410 million of coronavirus aid, raising the total to be repaid by country's leading supermarkets to over 1.3 billion, in a boost to the Treasury's cash flow. So that's good news. The company said that it had, Sainsbury's said that it had benefited from its essential retail status through the government's lockdown, leading to boosting sales and profits, so will return the business rates relief offered over that period. The cash will help ease the rapidly rising national debt over the coming years. Having been the first nation to approve a coronavirus vaccine, with rollouts actually expected to begin as early as next week, the UK Deputy Chief Medical Officer encouraged the nation to take the vaccine to get back to normal. Again, I have mixed views about this, and actually so do quite a lot of people. So worries are growing that the vaccination has been rushed through approval stages, with the public holding mixed appetite for taking it as it's been developed in such a short time frame. So the US medical advisor believes that the UK has not acted with enough caution. But also that he expects the US and the EU to approve the treatment in the coming days. So again, there's different of opinions here, isn't there? And you know, the US is saying that we've rushed it through too quickly, but they're going to have you know, treatment approved in the next couple of days, which is, you know, it swings and roundabouts. So it's funny that, isn't it, really, that they can have an opinion on us. Now, I personally, and I'll probably get told off for saying this, but I personally am not a fan of the vaccine. I agree that it's been rushed through too quickly. I'm not a fan of vaccines anyway. I think, you know, much more natural way of doing things. So I'm sorry if I offend anyone out there, but I personally won't be taking the vaccine. None of my family will be taking the vaccine. And we'll be looking at just building our immunity. And I would rather take my chances with the virus personally. How that will restrict me moving forward, I don't know. There's lots of rumours out there that you won't be able to fly if you don't have the vaccine, and there will be restrictions on, you know, or there's rumours that there'll be restrictions on what you can and can't do. I'll take my chances. Anyway, so on a positive note, positive coronavirus cases have fallen by 28% in England. Well, according to the new test and trace data report anyway. Between November 19th and the 25th, 110,620 people tested positive for coronavirus, more than a quarter down on the previous week. And in a further boost, the number of people being successfully contacted by the test and trace system increased too, rising to a 72.5% during the week in question, after the weeks of nearly recorded lows of 60%. The figures give fresh hope that Britain may have turned a corner in its fight to or against the virus, with the first vaccines being rolled out, as we said, next week, whether you have them or not. The first Brits will be given the jab within a matter of days, although it could be months before enough of the population have been or have had it for the country to be open back up fully. I think I've given enough opinions on that, and we're all entitled to them. But these conspiracy theorists don't look so crazy of late, do they? So I've spoken to many people, and we asked this question last week as well, didn't we? You know, on in the chat box, and it's all private, so you're welcome to put whatever you want in the chat box. You can disagree with me as well. You know, I'm open to any argument, and appreciate just, you know, what you guys are thinking. But I've spoken to many people who are pro-vaccine, and they said yes, everybody should have the vaccine. But then I've said, well, are you going to have it? And they said no. So, I mean, there is so many mixed views here on who should and shouldn't have it, and you know, you're almost treading on glass, giving any sort of opinion, I suppose. But hopefully you guys don't. I'm not disappointing you in giving you my opinion. I apologize if I am, but I am entitled to it as well, and I appreciate your opinions also. So that is enough of me moaning about it. Literally, there was an advert on the TV, not the TV, sorry, on Facebook or something the other day, and it said about women that hadn't had food were more ratty. Well, I haven't had breakfast this morning. Maybe that's why maybe that's why I'm a little bit more ratty this morning. But anyway, actually, I'm in a really, really good mood. It's just a topic that I'm open to all opinions on, and yeah. So hopefully that doesn't disappoint you too much. I can see that many of you are agreeing in the chat box as well, and some of you that aren't as well, and that's fine. I still love you all the same. Right, so I'm going to quickly go through. I do actually have some questions that were sent through to me. So I've got a few questions here. So I'm going to check the chat box first of all, because we've got quite a few in the chat box. I'm just trying to pick up the questions in between opinions and things like that. Oh, so Helen's asked a really good question. I actually don't know the answer to this, Helen, but I'll definitely find out to you, and I'll either email you personally or message you as I have your number, or I'll address it on next week's call. As that way, regardless, I will still address it on next week's call so that everybody can know the answer to it. So Helen's asked a really good question about the Green Homes grant scheme. And she said, can you also apply when changing the roof through the scheme? So I'm not entirely sure about that, Helen. I'm going to have to check that out for you. I know that there are that you can insulate the roof and things like that. If any of you know, in the chat box, pop it in there. But I will check it out anyway, and I'll 100% get back to you on that, and let the rest of you know whether you can or not. There is, don't forget that that's £5,000 cap on there as well. I had a quick look at the criteria the other day, and it is pretty strict. I don't recall reading anything about a roof, but I will specifically ask that question and come back to you. I think that's the only question in the chat box. So if you do have any questions, just pop them in there. I'm going to go through the questions that I've been sent through here now. So one of the questions then was, so I won't read out who they're from, but one of the questions was, if I'm looking at a commercial valuation, what calculations should I be expected to do, or should I do? So it really does depend on what you're purchasing, and it depends on so many different factors. But as a rule of thumb, or probably the quickest and easiest way I can explain this is, if it's an income producing asset, I would do 7.5 times your annual revenue. And so if you just do 7.5 times your annual revenue, that is there or there about the valuation mark, and then typically you're looking at 60 up to 75%, but if you test it, 60 to 65% loan to value, and obviously there's so many lending factors here, but around 5 to 7% interest. If you're just looking to do basic figures, what I'd recommend that you do is you speak to your broker, find out what lending is available for that particular project, and that's probably the most efficient way of moving forward. Well, you need to do that anyway. So if you want to quickly run your figures, 7.5 times the annual revenue will work for you and give you an indication. It's possible that you could get higher, but just as a quickest way to kind of explain that, and easiest way would be 7.5 times. I'm going to skip that question and come back to it because I need to think about it. Actually, I'll read it out and then come back to it while I'm thinking about it and asking the other questions. So the question is, what's been the biggest lesson you have learned during COVID or this year? So I'm going to have a think about that one, because that's a really hard question. Yeah, put me on the spot there. So I'll have a think about that one. Let me know what yours is. So if you're brave enough, I won't read your name out if you don't want me to. But let me know what's the biggest lesson that you've learned during this year. One on the stamp duty holiday, I think I actually addressed that in the, so the question is, when does the stamp duty holiday end? So that's March 2021. There could be a possibility, or there are rumours that may be extended. Okay, God, some really hard questions today. I should have read through these beforehand. Another question, is it lending or unemployment that will cause property prices to drop 2021? So I'd say that it's a mixture between both, but lending, of course, is going to dictate whether people can purchase or not. But that will very much come down to affordability as well. So if there's, mass unemployment and, all of these reports that are coming out and redundancies and things like that, if that happens, then of course you are going to have a lot of people that won't meet the criteria of the lender. So it kind of goes hand in hand, in my opinion. But I would say lending, but of course the unemployment isn't going to help their situation, which obviously means affordability isn't there, so they won't qualify for the criteria of the lenders that are out there. So that it kind of goes hand in hand. So another question then. Okay. So where is it good to invest in HMOs is the question. And so I get this question asked all the time, actually. And it really depends, it depends on what you're looking to achieve, your target audience, profile, tenant profile, your budget. All of this plays into what areas will work well for you. But if you're looking at areas with, high demand for that type of accommodation, closer to towns and city centres always work well. You still need to check because HMOs don't work everywhere. But I would say right now you've got... I would say Birmingham works very well. Of course, it's my area, so I'm going to say that. Leeds and Bradford works very well for HMOs. I would say Stoke-on-Trent and Crewe works very well for HMOs. Nottingham as well. And where else? Anywhere along that M62 corridor. So the commuter belts, so anywhere across there. So I would say, so Stoke-on-Trent, Crewe, Leeds, Bradford, Manchester, of course. Liverpool always works well, but there's parts of areas around Liverpool that I there's parts of areas around all of these places that I would definitely stay away from. So it really does depend on, there's demand there, but it depends on what profile of tenant you're looking to house, what your purchase price range is and what you're looking to achieve, whether you're looking at capital and cash flow or whether you're just focusing on cash flow. So there's so many different things that we have to take into account there. So actually, if the person that asked this question, if you want to email me or have a conversation with me personally about your specific needs, then I may be able to help you a little better in direct you what areas may work best for you. So we've got another one here. So I've purchased properties in Scotland, all cash, under £60,000, and I'm struggling, all valued under £60,000, and I'm struggling to get finance. Okay. So actually I've had quite a lot of people that have approached me recently, not through Your Freedom Empire, so people that have come through other trading organisations, sourcing agents and things like that have sourced deals in Scotland, and they're very cheap, so they're all under, £40,000 to £50,000 purchase price. Of course, they've been cash purchase. And the idea was that they would purchase cash and then refinance. But there are, lenders have minimum loan amounts, and your lending that's available in Scotland as well is more limited, especially if you are an international as well. And it's mainly internationals that have actually come to me and said, look, I've purchased 3 properties, 30, 40, £50,000, and I can't get finance on it. So again, I'd say you need to speak to your broker, but it is unlikely, as many lenders have minimum loan amounts, and you could actually put them together. So you could do a portfolio finance, but again, the criteria is quite strict around that. So I definitely recommend that you speak to a broker. Many of the brokers that I deal with in Scotland aren't actually dealing with internationals at all at this moment in time. So unless the purchase price is fair market value is much higher. So you are very limited. If you're playing in the lowest end of the field, so you're buying buy-to-lets in Scotland or Newcastle, and the purchase price or the fair market value is below that £50,000. I mean, I'd even say below 80 to 100. You are very limited to the lending that's available. So if you are purchasing that with a view to refinancing in 6 months' time and pulling your cash out, then it's very unlikely, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news there. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's very unlikely, and I haven't seen much of that happen. If you can get lending available at that lowest end, then you are looking at a lower loan to value, and around 50% loan to value, and you can go up to the 75%, but they tend to go lower so that their risk is less. And you are looking at higher interest rates as well, at around 6 to 8%, which sometimes actually kills the deal. So you need to be looking before you even purchase. Don't care if you're purchasing cash. If you have the view of getting that cash back out at some point in the future, you need to speak to a broker about what finance will be available to you. Always do that as part of your due diligence, because the last thing anybody wants to do is purchase cash. Yes, it's great because you purchase cash, you move along quicker, you've got an income producing asset there, the property is tenanted, but your cash is tied up. So if you are looking to recycle that money and move on to another deal, or you're expecting to refinance and then you can't, then that deal doesn't look as good as it originally did. So that is obviously going to affect your numbers massively. So don't fall into that trap. Make sure that even if you are purchasing cash, you understand what finance is available for you in the future to refinance. And if you are playing at that lower end of the field, where the value of the properties is below £100,000, then there are limited lending options available for you. And so just be aware of that. So I don't think I've got any more questions coming through. I got that one question to answer. So I'll answer that one question. So what's the biggest lesson you've learned during COVID or this year? It's a slash. So nobody's put theirs in the chat box, so clearly you guys don't want to tell me, but I'll be brave and say. I would say probably the biggest lesson I've learned this year so far through COVID, seeing how people behave differently in that. And this is no surprise to many. Probably if you've been watching us from day one, then you'll very much remember that there's some really good friends that I've lost contact with, respect for, and no longer call friends. So I would say not everybody that, the biggest lesson I've learned is not everybody that smiles at you is your friend. And never believe anything you hear and only half of what you see. So I would say that that's been my biggest lesson, and something that I've had to deal with this year, 100%, and massively knocked me for six. People that, through organisations that I've worked with, that I've called friends, and that obviously that hasn't been the case. So misjudgment of character, learning, that even I can screw up and get people wrong. So I would say that's probably my biggest lesson. Yeah, so got that one out of the way. Right, so as none of you want to share your lessons with me, I'm going to move on. Good questions, really hard questions. You've definitely put me to the test today, guys, and definitely put me on the spot. So just through our updates then, guys. So our Your Freedom Empire event, so our Property Success Convention. So we've got a code here for you. So our convention is going ahead on the 12th of December. And it starts at 8 a.m. UK time. So any of you that want to come along, please do. There is an early bird access there. So if you type in the PSC444. That will get you early bird access. If you know anyone that's looking to get into property, wants to be part of a positive network, you know, wants to listen to me, Pip, and many of the other mentors babble on for a couple of days. We cover various different topics. It's your chance to get your questions answered live in a nice positive group of people. If you're looking to get into property, it's great. We can show you how to do that. And services and tools available to get you started. If you're already in property but you just want to a boost or to be part of a different network, then come along. This is for you. For those of you that have already attended or have come through our training or have access to us, you're all welcome. If you know anybody that wants to attend, pass the codes over. That's absolutely fine for you to do that. And we look forward to seeing you all there. So our platform, so actually this is looking far better than I ever anticipated. So this is Premier Investment Vault. So pop along, get registered. I think majority of you on the call have actually already registered. We actually have 41 sourcing agents now, so we're getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So we're making sure that everything's in place for you all before it goes live. And as soon as it does, I'll be welcoming all of your feedback. So get registered. Then, of course, we're still doing these consultation calls. So I had a few this week. If you want to have a conversation with me, perhaps the person that asked the question around the areas to invest and the one that asked the questions around finance for your Scottish properties, book a call in because I can actually help you more by speaking to you direct. So this is actually a genuine call. There is no upsell. I don't try and sell you anything. My team don't try and sell you anything. It is a genuine 30-minute consultation, and it's our way of giving back and helping people that are in sticky situations or just need somebody to bounce an idea off or something like that. So it's very much open to anyone. You don't have to be part of Your Freedom Empire. I don't have to be your mentor. It doesn't matter. And so if you're interested in that, pop along to or pop an email to admin@yourfreedomempire.co.uk and pop in the subject box there, free call. And then again, thank you for all of your questions that you sent through this week. I massively appreciate it. If you do have questions and you're not able to watch the live, we actually get lots of people or more people actually watch on the replay on YouTube. So you can send your questions through and get them answered still. So get booked in with admin at Your Freedom Empire. Pop in the question box, webinar questions, and we'll get them answered. Right, so I've got today off, which never happens. I never give myself the day off, but I'm excited to say that actually now this is me done for the rest of the day. I'm going to have a winter picnic, which is probably going to end up in the car with the heated seats on, but we'll see. And then I think we're going to go shopping as well, so do a little bit of Christmas shopping. But it's an anything can happen day. I'm going to enjoy my Friday. Definitely still having pizza this evening, and I think a Christmas movie is in order. So guys and girls, I hope you have an awesome Friday, an excellent weekend. I will have a guest for you next week, and I will see you all again next week. Goodbye for now.